For New Jersey Advanced Media, I am Connor Hughes, one of your New York Jets beat writers, and what we are about to do is something that we started a little bit earlier this week when training camp began, that is a live question and answer mailbag. We do these pretty frequently over on NJ.com/Jets, where we take your questions via Twitter, answer them in written text. We're trying something a little bit different, and we're going to answer a couple of them here in a video, and then we're going to answer a little bit more in text. So here's how it's going to work. Throughout the day, we gathered a few questions via Twitter. We saved those questions. I've got 4 of them written down here. We're going to answer those 4, and if you have any other questions during the live mailbag, just drop them down here in the little comment section, and I will be sure to get to them right after we are done with these Twitter questions. So without further ado, let's dive right into this. And the first question that we have is coming from @LKimmy22, which says, is there any chance that the Jets trade for an offensive tackle here when the preseason begins? And let me put it to you this way. In a perfect world, yes, the Jets could deal a position that they have an abundance of health at for an offensive tackle, get somebody in there, especially with Breno Giacomini's health a concern right now. Go out there, trade for an offensive lineman, put him in there, roll with it. The issue that the Jets have right now is that they don't really have the salary cap space to make a move for an offensive tackle. Again, perfect world, go out there, get a starting caliber offensive tackle, Anthony Davis potentially, put him in there as your starter and roll with it. But with $1.5 million in salary cap space, the Jets don't really have that luxury to go and add an offensive tackle via trade, because once you trade for an offensive tackle, you've got to pay said offensive tackle, and the Jets just don't have $5, $6 million, $4 million, $5 million, $8 million to drop on a quality right tackle. So odds are right now what the team is going to do is they're going to roll with what they've got. And that's Breno Giacomini as your starter once he returns and is healthy, followed by Brent Quale and Ben Jalin, who are right now battling it out there, getting first-team reps with Giacomini dealing with that back issue. Would a trade hypothetically work? Absolutely, but the Jets just don't simply have the salary cap space to make it work. So odds are, if I'm going to put a guess on it right now, I'd say it's probably a 65% chance that you get Breno Giacomini as your starter, and then split it the rest of the way between Ben and Brent Quale. Question number 2, this is coming from Rob NG88, and this says, how are the new additions on the Jets defensive line looking? And let me tell you, the one guy that has without a doubt stood out, and he's somebody that on a crowded defensive line I think is going to force his way onto the field. He had a very good year last year for the Bears, and that is Jarvis Jenkins. This guy has made his presence felt both without pads, and now that the Jets have put pads on the last 2 days, he's popping all over the place. He's getting into the backfield. He's making plays as a defensive end. He's making plays as a defensive tackle when the Jets have worked in some 43 fronts. He's a guy that looks very good, and it shouldn't come as too much of a surprise because, he was a higher draft pick, and now he's starting to find his own. He started finding his own last year. I think he had 5 sacks with the Bears, and, for him to now come in and be put into a defensive line rotation that includes Sheldon Richardson and Muhammad Wilkerson and Leonard Williams, I think you're going to see Jarvis Jenkins' name in there as well, and you're going to have that 4-way rotation at 34 defensive end working your way in there. And Jarvis does give them a little bit of flexibility too, because he's a bigger guy, so he can probably even get some reps at nose tackle in passing situations if the Jets choose to do that. So, are any of the new additions stepping out on the defensive line? I would say yes, and the big name there being Jarvis Jenkins. All right, going down, this question comes from Steven Shatter, and it says, will Jalin Marshall make the 53-man roster? Jalin is a guy that signed with the Jets as an undrafted free agent out of Ohio State. If he had stayed in Ohio State for his senior season, coming out next year, he's probably a 3rd-round pick, potentially a 2nd-round pick. Decided to enter the NFL draft. Nobody took him. They had questions about his route running, his hands, his durability. Ended up falling all the way out of the draft. I talked to him actually during rookie minicamp, and he told me that when he was going throughout the draft process, he had heard lower round draft pick, but he also said that he weighed every single one of his options, that he was prepared to not be drafted, and he felt that not being drafted and going onto a team as an undrafted free agent still outweighed him staying in college. So he has no regrets about staying in school. Or, I'm sorry, he has no regrets about entering the draft and not being picked when talking about Jalin Marshall. Now, will he make the 53-man roster? We're only a week into camp, but if I'm putting a gun to my head, I'm probably going to say yeah. I think that Jalin, when all is said and done, will make this 53-man roster. I think he will probably make it over Sharon Peak, and he will be that 5th, 6th wideout that the Jets keep. Depending on how many quarterbacks they keep will impact how many receivers and defensive backs and all that stuff that they keep. But I would be very surprised if Jalin doesn't make it because, look, he's making a name for himself as a receiver in camp. He's showing that he can run with the ones. He's showing that he can beat the #1 defense. He's showing versatility as both an outside wide receiver and a slot wide receiver. But what's going to earn him a spot on the roster as opposed to the practice squad is the fact that he's making a name for himself on special teams as well. The Jets are using him as a kick returner. The Jets are using him as a punt returner. The Jets are using him as an outside receiver. The Jets are using him as a slot receiver, and he's doing all of them well. He's not a huge guy. I think he's like 5'10", 5'11", but he has the ability to play all of those positions. And, you know, when you talk to Todd Bowles and you ask him what he wants in special teamers, what he wants in returners, and I know it drove some Jet fans mad last year, was that, you know, why didn't they have a return specialist? Why didn't they have a return specialist? In Todd Bowles' mind, you need to be able to do more than just one thing to make this roster. You can't just be a returner. You can't just be a receiver. If you're going to be one of those lower depth chart guys, you've got to be able to do both. And what Jalin's doing right now is he's showing that he can do both. He's showing that he can be a punt returner. He's showing he can be a kick returner, and he's showing he has that value on offense. So for that, I think, yeah, when the 53-man roster comes out, I think that Jalin will be a guy that is on this 53-man roster. And with questions, you know, around Devin Smith right now, that probably improves his chances even more. Final question that we've got here is from Tom Rossi, and his question is one that I know is out there quite a bit, and it is, who is the favorite right now to start at outside linebacker? And look, you've got Lorenzo Malden. He's locked in. He's your one outside linebacker, no doubt. Lorenzo Malden's going to be the one. Absolutely 110% when the Jets open the season week 1, barring some injury, the other outside linebacker is going to be Jordan Jenkins. This is a guy that in OTAs with everybody there, in minicamp with everybody there, and through the first week of training camp with everybody there, has received every single first-team rep at outside linebacker. See, the Jets are working it now in a way that they're going in shifts. Like, all right, this guy gets first-team reps this week, this guy gets first-team reps last week. So Jordan could have been in there simply for that reason. What's going to keep him there and what's going to make sure that he does not leave that lineup is that he is showing that he belongs. You know, he doesn't seem out of place when he's in there with the ones running against the ones. It doesn't seem like he's running around with a chicken without his head cut off, or that he's lost, or that he's making all these rookie mistakes, or that he's a liability out there. He looks like a proven veteran that belongs on the field. And for that, look, I mean, I understand why he dropped in the draft, why the Jets were able to get him where they did in the third round. You know, he's not an elite pass rusher. He doesn't have, you know, 4.4, 4.5 speed. He's not absurdly strong. But what he does is he plays football. I mean, the guy is a football player. He does the dirty work. He can pass rush a little bit. He can play the run. He does everything that you like, and it's no wonder that Todd Bowles has fallen in love with him, because he really is almost a recreation of Calvin Pace. I mean, what he does so well at a young age is what Calvin Pace has made a career doing with the Jets. So will Jordan Jenkins be the Jets starting outside linebacker? Yeah. I think that Jordan Jenkins will be the Jets starting outside linebacker, because not only is he getting all these first-team reps, but when he is getting these first-team reps, he is showing that he belongs. So when the Jets open week 1, your bookend guys are going to be Lorenzo Malden on one side, barring injury, and Jordan Jenkins on the other. All right, so that is going to do it here for the video mailbag live question and answer portion of our mailbag that we do every week. These were 4 questions that we took. We are going to take about 5 to 10 extra ones via Twitter submission. We're going to answer them in a written text, which is going to run on Tuesday before Jets practice. So if you have any other questions that were not answered here in this mailbag, just shoot me a tweet at Connor_J_Hughes, and I will be sure to answer those questions in the mailbag. Thank you so much for joining us, and be sure to stay tuned to NJ.com/Jets for the best Jets coverage that you can get anywhere.